What would you do if a single choice, made in a moment of frustration, unraveled the life you thought you knew? Daniel Harper faced that question on a chilly October evening, and the answer would haunt him. He was a man stretched thin husband, father, son, and breadwinner juggling a demanding job and a family that seemed to need more than he could give. His wife, Sarah, was his anchor, a woman whose quiet strength held their small world together. But lately, even she seemed distant, her eyes carrying a weight she wouldn't share. That evening, Daniel's mother, Evelyn, called. Her voice was sharp, insistent. She needed a ride to her weekly craft group, a ritual she treated like a sacred pilgrimage. Daniel groaned. It was his one night off, a rare chance to sit with Sarah and their daughter, Lily, to watch a movie and feel like a family again. But Evelyn wouldn't hear it. "You're my son," she said, her tone a mix of guilt and command. "You can't leave me stranded." Sarah, ever patient, nodded when he looked to her for an out. "Go," she said softly. "We'll be here when you get back." The drive to Evelyn's house was tense. Daniel's mind churned with resentment. Why was it always him? His sister lived closer, but Evelyn never called her. He was tired of being the dutiful son, the one who always said yes. At the craft store, Evelyn took her time, browsing yarn and chatting with friends while Daniel waited in the car, the engine idling like his growing anger. When she finally emerged, she complained about his silence, his attitude. "You could at least pretend to care," she snapped. Something in Daniel broke. He didn't take her home. Instead, he drove to a bar, dropped her off with a curt, "Find your own way back," and sped off into the night. The freedom felt electric at first. He turned up the radio, letting the music drown out his guilt. But as the miles stretched on, unease crept in. His phone buzzed Sarah, probably wondering where he was. He ignored it. Then it buzzed again, and again. By the fourth call, his stomach twisted. He pulled over and answered. Sarah's voice was trembling, not with anger, but with fear. "It's Lily," she said. "She's in the hospital. She had a seizure." "Where are you?" The world tilted. Daniel's mind raced back to the morning, when Lily had seemed quieter than usual, her small hands clutching her stuffed rabbit. Sarah had mentioned a doctor's appointment, but he'd brushed it off, too consumed with work. Now, his daughter was fighting for her life, and he was halfway across town, running from his responsibilities. He sped to the hospital, his heart pounding. When he arrived, Sarah was in the waiting room, her face pale but composed. She didn't yell or accuse. She just looked at him, her eyes saying everything her words didn't. Lily was stable, but the doctors were grim. She needed tests, monitoring, maybe lifelong treatment. Sarah had been carrying this worry alone, shielding Daniel from the truth to keep their family steady. And he'd repaid her by abandoning them for a petty rebellion. The guilt was a weight he couldn't shake. He stayed by Lily's side, holding her hand, promising to be better, to be there. But the damage was done. When Daniel finally called Evelyn, she was furious, recounting how she'd waited hours for a ride home. He apologized, but his voice was hollow. He saw now that his mother's demands had always been a test, one he'd failed by choosing resentment over love. The next day, he set boundaries with Evelyn, telling her he'd no longer be her chauffeur. She protested, but he held firm. His family, Sarah and Lily, came first. Weeks later, Daniel learned Evelyn had fallen at the craft store that night, spraining her ankle. She hadn't told him, perhaps out of pride, but the news hit him hard. Karma, it seemed, had a way of balancing the scales. Yet it wasn't just Daniel who felt its sting. Sarah, too, had to face her own silence, her habit of carrying burdens alone. They began talking more, rebuilding trust. Lily's condition improved, but it was a reminder of how fragile life was. Daniel changed. He showed up for Lily's appointments, for Sarah's quiet moments of doubt, for himself. He learned that love wasn't just duty. It was choosing to stay, even when it was hard. The night he drove away from his mother wasn't just a mistake, it was a mirror, showing him who he'd become and who he needed to be. Karma served its lesson cold, but it left room for redemption, for a man who'd almost lost everything to find his way back home.